A husband and wife just declared war on each other without raising their voices, and by the end of Silo Season 3 Episode 6, one of them will poison an entire population to win. If you thought Camille was dangerous before this episode, wait until you see what she does once she stops holding back. Silo Season 3 Episode 6 wastes no time reminding us that nobody in this world gets to stay dead, or stay trusted, for very long. The episode opens with Bernard being pulled back from the brink after nearly burning alive, and the reception he gets from Shirley and Knox is about as warm as you'd expect for a man who spent most of the season lying to everyone around him. He's not exactly greeted like a hero, and honestly, he's earned every bit of that cold shoulder. What's interesting here isn't the reunion itself, it's what it does to Bernard. A man who spent years running IT with total control now finds himself powerless, dependent on people who have every reason to let him rot. That shift in status is going to matter more than it seems in this moment, because a humble Bernard is a very different character than the one we've watched all season. Before that tension even has time to settle, Juliet walks back into Walker's workshop and drops a bombshell that changes the entire direction of the episode. Her memories are back. Not fragments, not flashes, all of it. And once that's on the table, the group huddled in that workshop starts piecing together something they've been circling for weeks: the location of the safeguard system built into every silo. Bernard is the one who cracks it open, pointing out that when Lucas rebuilt the old hard drive, it revealed a pair of lines running from outside into the silo itself. One of them is obvious, a power line feeding electricity from Silo 1 straight into the IT servers so they never go dark, no matter what happens inside. The second line is the one that matters. They believe it's a pipe, one built to deliver poison gas the moment a safeguard is triggered, and it likely comes out somewhere inside Judicial. The problem is they don't know exactly where, and the only way to find out is by reconnecting with Solo, the man living alone in an identical silo with maps that could finally give them a real answer. While that plan starts to take shape, the emotional core of this episode is quietly building somewhere else entirely, inside a marriage that's coming apart in real time. Camille, now running IT in Silo 18, has spent this entire season trying to outmaneuver the algorithm's plan to wipe everyone's memory, and her husband Robert is caught directly in the middle of it. There's a moment early on where Camille is lowered down to clear the gap, and the look on her face says everything her voice won't. Robert just stands there, waiting, already knowing he's about to have to explain himself for something. It's a quiet scene, but it hits harder than almost anything louder in the episode, because both of these characters feel fully formed. This isn't two side characters shuffling through plot points to get somewhere else. This is a real marriage under real pressure, and you believe every second of it. Their conversation that follows is a masterclass in saying everything without actually saying anything directly. Robert mentions that Juliet got away, and Camille fires back instantly, pointing out that she got away from him specifically. From there, things escalate fast. Camille sends him home, essentially benching him, and frames it as him needing to spend time with their son Anthony. But underneath that framing is something much colder, an unspoken message that she no longer trusts him to have her back. And just to make sure he understands the stakes, she adds one more detail on her way out. She tells a guard to keep an eye on her own husband, knowing full well he'll notice, and knowing exactly what that means for their relationship going forward. What makes this section of the episode so effective is the sense that everyone involved is crossing a line they can't walk back from. Robert is choosing loyalty to something outside his marriage. Camille is choosing control over trust. And once Camille learns that Juliet has resurfaced at Walker's workshop, she heads there immediately, only for Juliet to get a warning just in time and meet her outside instead, away from cameras. Juliet tells her the truth, or at least a version close enough to sell it. Her memories are back. She knows about the algorithm, the voice guiding every decision in the silo. And she knows Silo 17 isn't actually dead, that there are children still alive inside it, kids she once promised she'd come back for. What she leaves out is the real reason she wants back in. Finding those kids matters to her, but what she's really chasing is a way to stop the safeguard before it can be used again. Camille senses there's more going on beneath the surface, and she's right, but she doesn't push hard enough to find out what. That uncertainty is enough to get Juliet an audience with the algorithm itself, and it's here that the episode reveals just how calculated this system really is. Juliet repeats her story, adds the detail that Silo 17 is flooding, insists she isn't a threat. The algorithm runs its numbers and shuts her down flat, predicting disaster either way, whether Juliet leaves or someone else takes her place. It's only when Juliet makes an unexpected offer, agreeing to go back on the memory drugs herself and even let the rescued children be drugged too, that the conversation shifts. It's a desperate, almost unbelievable bargain, but it works, because it solves every problem the algorithm cares about. Camille clocks the manipulation the second they step outside, and she doesn't hide the fact that she doesn't trust it. But for now, the mission to Silo 17 is greenlit, and the search for who gets sent out into the dark is about to begin. Back at the workshop, Juliet finds Walker and Bernard alone, since Lucas and Patrick Kennedy have been shoved into an empty room down the hall for talking way too much. She fills them in on what just happened with the algorithm, and Walker raises a question that's been quietly hanging over the entire season. Is the voice actually a person, or is it just a machine running numbers with no feelings attached? Juliet doesn't have an answer, and honestly, that ambiguity feels intentional. What she does know is that whoever goes to Silo 17 needs to be someone who can push through absolute horror without turning back, because she remembers exactly what that climb looked like the first time, stepping over bodies just to keep moving forward. Bernard cuts through the debate by saying the choice has to come down to skill, plain and simple. They need their best engineers. And that points directly at Knox and Shirley. Before that decision can move forward, though, the investigation into Orla's murder takes a sharp turn. Sheriff Billings and Hank are working the case together, and Paul lays out the real problem, that the silo is running dangerously low on critical supplies because of ongoing theft, and finding out who's stealing might be the fastest way to find out who killed Orla. That leads them straight to Mark in the metal shop, a man who clearly has no patience for cops in general and even less for Billings specifically. He's still holding a grudge from the rebellion, when two raiders threw his best friend over the rail, and he doesn't hold back letting Paul know exactly how he feels about outsiders wearing a badge. Paul manages to work an angle anyway, offering to hand over the raiders' names in exchange for information, and Mark gives something up. The weapons he made were for Knox. And if they want real answers about stolen goods, they need to talk to his father. While that thread is developing, there's a smaller, quieter moment between Knox and Shirley that says a lot without saying much at all. Shirley is clearly struggling with the weight of everything she's learned about the safeguard, and it's easy to read that as simple fear in the moment. But it lines up with something planted earlier in the season, a scar that suggested her birth control implant had been removed. That detail becomes a lot more important once Billings tracks down Knox to press him about his father, and Knox reacts with more anger than the moment seems to call for. It's a small crack in a character we honestly don't know that well. We don't even know his first name yet at this point in the show. He shuts the conversation down with a warning that Billings clearly doesn't know who he's dealing with, and that line lands just as hard on the audience, because at this point, none of us really know Knox either. That tension carries straight into the mission planning. When Juliet tells the group that Knox and Shirley are needed for the trip to Silo 17, Knox immediately pushes back on Shirley being involved at all. Shirley asks for a minute alone with him, and that's when we learn she's pregnant. It reframes everything about his protectiveness, and everything about her decision to go anyway. He has every reason in the world to beg her to stay behind, and every one of those reasons is valid, but he also knows that stopping her has never actually worked, because it's not who she is. Eventually, he admits something raw, that if something happened to her out there, he doesn't know if he could come back from that kind of loss. She hears him completely, but reminds him of something he once told her himself, that he wanted to see the world beyond the silo walls someday. If they're going together. He makes her promise one thing in return, that if he goes down out there, she keeps moving and doesn't try to save him. It's a brutal deal to make with someone you love, and it tells you everything about how high the stakes have climbed. Meanwhile, Billings and Hank hit a wall trying to get anything useful out of Knox, so they pivot toward Glenda Harwood, remembering a tense run-in she had with Orla's father back at a council meeting. When questioning her directly gets them nowhere, Paul takes a much bolder approach, pushing his way into Emerson's office to demand access to security footage, using his authority as sheriff and the fact that he already knows they never actually stopped watching the cameras like they claimed. It works. The footage shows Glenda near the mines right before the exterminators arrived, but there's no trace of Orla anywhere in the frame. Then, almost immediately after, they spot Glenda again, this time near Supply, which makes no logical sense given how far that location is and how little time has passed. There's simply no way she could have covered that distance that fast, and the episode leaves that mystery hanging in the air, unresolved for now, a loose thread the show clearly wants us thinking about. By the time we circle back to Camille, it's clear the walls are closing in on her from every direction. Her marriage, her son, her authority as head of IT, and the growing sense that Juliet is playing a longer game than anyone realizes. And what happens next pushes her past the point of no return. Camille heads home to check on Robert, and what should be a simple visit turns into another gut punch. He tells her their son Anthony got caught stealing credits from his teacher's desk and then tried to pin the blame on someone else. Camille doesn't say much at first, just waits for an explanation that never really comes. Robert warns that if it happens again, Anthony could be expelled, and possibly sent off to work in supply as punishment, though he immediately points out how unlikely that actually is considering his mother runs IT and his father is the judge. Camille doesn't care about the technicality. What matters to her is the pattern forming right in front of her, a husband she can't fully trust and a son already learning how to lie his way out of trouble. The conversation that follows strips away whatever civility was left between her and Robert. She tells him flatly that he needs to stop whatever he's hiding, because once she finds out what it is, and she won't have a choice but to act on it. That admission scares her more than she lets on, and you can feel it in how quickly she leaves the house afterward, heading straight for the one place she thinks might give her clarity. Down in the vault, the algorithm reads her instantly, correctly guessing she isn't there for guidance, she's there for a fight. She challenges the decision to send anyone to Silo 17 at all, questioning whether there are even children alive over there in the first place, and pointing out that the algorithm itself doesn't actually know the answer to that question. But instead of engaging with her argument, it shifts into something closer to therapy, telling her the truth doesn't matter as much as she thinks it does, without ever explaining why. Camille isn't looking for comfort, she's looking for a fight, and when she doesn't get one, she starts unloading everything she's been carrying. She admits she thinks Juliet is a threat, that her husband is lying to her, and that her own son has become a thief. She says she's failing as head of IT, failing as a wife, and failing as a mother, all at once. The algorithm's response is almost clinical in how precise it is, explaining that her sense of failure comes from emotional exhaustion, and reminding her that she was chosen for this role because she was strong enough to handle it. It's manipulation dressed up as reassurance, and it works exactly the way it's designed to. Recharged in a way that feels more artificial than earned, Camille goes straight to Juliet and challenges her choice to send Knox and Shirley on the mission to Silo 17, insisting they're too valuable to lose and demanding she pick people who are expendable instead. Juliet throws out Lucas and Kennedy as alternatives, but refuses to say where they're hiding, knowing full well Camille wants them dead for what they've done. That refusal buys Juliet another meeting with the algorithm, and this time Camille brings her back to the vault herself, trying to push Deegan, Knox, and Shirley forward as the chosen team. The algorithm shuts that down immediately, for the exact same reasons it gave Camille earlier. Juliet has no choice left but to offer up Lucas and Kennedy instead, and the algorithm approves them without hesitation, setting their departure for dawn the very next day. What happens right after Juliet leaves the room is where this episode reveals just how far ahead the algorithm is really thinking. It tells Camille flatly that Lucas and Kennedy will never actually make it to Silo 17. Camille is genuinely caught off guard that Juliet got played this easily, and the algorithm reminds her that Juliet has always required special handling, because letting her live only postpones a much bigger problem down the line. Then comes the moment that changes everything. The algorithm tells Camille she needs to get the memory-wiping drugs into the drinking water immediately. Camille's response lands like a quiet gut punch. She already did it 2 hours ago. Every single person in Mechanical, everyone Juliet has been working with, planning with, trusting with the truth, none of them are going to remember any of it. The rescue mission, the plan to stop the safeguard, all of it erased before it even had a chance to matter. That single choice is what makes this episode so devastating. This isn't a villain flipping a switch out of cruelty. This is a wife and mother who has been backed into a corner by a system designed to exploit exactly the kind of exhaustion and fear she's feeling, and she chooses control over trust, obedience over doubt, because it's the only thing that still feels like power in a life that's completely spinning out of her hands. Meanwhile, on the complete opposite end of the emotional spectrum, Helen and Daniel finally get answers to the mystery that's kept them trapped for the entire episode. Their minivan, controlled the whole time by someone else, finally gets a police escort and delivers them to an airport hangar, where a mysterious man and Senator Thurman are waiting. Thurman greets them warmly, almost too warmly, and asks one simple question that ends the episode on a note of pure unease. How would they like to save the world? Silo Season 3 Episode 6 makes it painfully clear that everyone in this story is running out of room to stay who they used to be. Camille just erased trust from an entire community to protect the little control she has left, and there's no undoing that now. If this breakdown helped you catch details you might have missed, do me a favor and hit that like button, it genuinely helps this channel grow. Subscribe if you want the next episode breakdown the moment it drops, and drop a comment letting me know what you think Camille just set in motion, because this storm is only getting bigger from here.